Well, thank you very much for selecting and joining this session, offline and online. And thank you, Ken, flying from Singapore this morning, and George coming from Shima in Mie Prefecture, and Keiko from Osaka today, and going back to Niigata after this session. The overall theme of G1 conference today is can Japan become a role model and stabilizer? And tourism is in fact a stabilizer for the world. The question at hand is how Japan can be a role model as a destination of tourism and potentially immigration in this complex and increasing turbulent world. Since 2023, we have seen a strong rebound of inbound tourism. Last year, Japan received a record high number of almost 37 million tourists inbound. And more importantly, record high revenues of 8.1 trillion yen revenues received from tourists. Tourism has become Japan's third largest export sector after the automobile and chemical industries. And the government maintains the objective of achieving 60 million tourists and tourism revenues of 15 trillion yen by 2030. When this revenue target is achieved, the sector is likely to be Japan's largest export sector, surpassing the auto industry, as President Trump demands foreign auto producers to manufacture cars in the States. At the same time, we are starting to see over-tourism in certain destinations like Kyoto or Asakusa in Tokyo. And that is becoming a social and political issue in cities like Kyoto, and even helping the emergence of xenophobia sentiment in some cases. So the significant growth of tourism sector revenue growth in yen terms comes from the combination of increase in the number of tourists and the weaker yen. So I believe for Japan, it is time to make every effort to upgrade the tourism sector and increase per customer spend rather than purely chasing the target of the tourism sector. And for this session, I have invited 3 visionary leaders who are working in the respective sectors on upgrading the tourism sector in the different capacities and with different focus. Ken Chan, a leader with a great track record in property investment, formerly as the Japan head of the investment fund GIC, and now is leading the effort of developing Myoko and the Madarao area into a world-class mountain resort. George Kakuda has developed and operates a boutique hotel, Kakuda, with a focus on sustainable and regenerative tourism in Ise-shima area in the Mie Prefecture. He's leading a power producer and recently entered the tourism sector. And I think he's going to tell his story about it. And Keiko Kuwakino, chief chef of Michelin-starred Sanaburi restaurant in the boutique hotel of Satoyama Jujo in Niigata. And she's recognized globally as a leader of pursuing the agenda of local gastronomy and has received Go-e-Mio Terroir Award. I have stayed at both Satoyama Jujo and Kakuda and very much impressed by the quality of the unique experiences these accommodations and the restaurant offer. And I myself, Taku Mezawa, chair the Japan Tourism Agency Committee on developing inbound tourism market development, the government's first effort on this topic, which started in 2020 under the Suga administration. And I also co-founded an association to support local tourism development, working on themes like cultural tourism and nature tourism and nighttime tourism. This team of various experts over the past 5 years has supported more than 100 small projects for tourism content development across Japan through programs organized by Japan Tourism Agency and the Agency of Cultural Affairs Japan. So on this panel, we'll discuss on what kind of tourism destination we or Japan should aspire to be, and how to get there. The first question goes to everybody. Maybe starting from George, can you describe your efforts and vision to revitalize the local economy or local community? And what do you see as Japan's hidden gems, and how are you working on realizing that potential?
Yes, I'm George Kakuda. Thank you, Meza-san, to let me be here speaking and sharing my experience. So, I'm from apparel industry. I'm a apparel farmer and also the manufacturers in providing apparels to the world brands and to the world wholesalers. So from the apparel world, what we feel the problem of today is fishing cannot stand by itself, like global environment changes, and those are affecting the apparel farming very much. So we might need some other pillar for the fishing people's life. So I think the pillar should be the tourism. So the fishing and the tourism, then they can continue doing their fishing in their region. So this is my basic idea of starting this project of hotels.
I understand that it is not only about attracting tourists and creating additional revenues, but also regenerating, revitalizing the natural environment of the ocean as well as the land.
Yes.
Can you explain that?
So even for the tourism, the biggest asset that region could offer is those landscape and the rich nature. So if there is a rich nature, then the fishermen and the tourism industry both could benefit. So this is my starting point.
You offer quite rich experience for the guests staying in your four-room villas or four-room villas. Can you elaborate on the kind of representative experiences you offer to your customers?
Sure. One of the things is let guests join the pearl farming, especially the grafting part is a fun part. I share oysters to visitors and tell them how to graft nuclei into the pearl. We grow those oysters for several months until it becomes the pearls. And attending all those procedures of pearl farming, then guests would feel like a human intervention or what they do as an industry is good for the nature, because the pearl oyster itself purify the water, and also it accumulate the CO2 as a shell, and human takes it out from the water, and all those wasted part will get back to the soil by composting it. So the nature is kind of a sustainably circulating. Then if a guest could feel the nature could get richer with human intervention, then it makes the people rich in mind. That's what I think.
So without human activities, actually nature will die or will demolish. But with human intervention, with the residents as well as visitors, actually you can maintain the nature, both the ocean and the land, in a better way.
That's the main idea of what guests could feel and go back. Yes.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Maybe Keiko-san, can you give your view or your vision about what you have done and why?
Thank you so much for having me here. So I'm chef, so I'm not businessman like here. So I like to share my point of view. Our vision is very simple. We make local life to become attraction. So for example, like I'm living there for 12 years now. I'm working closely to the farmers, craftsman peoples, foragers. So that's then I provide the food for this local community. And I believe that this local community, this sense of that to give some special touch for the visitors, even from overseas. I think we're doing a very simple thing, not a big development. But I believe that more we focus to this connection to the people, to the nature, and to the land. So when visitors eat the food, then they feel that the sense of the community. So I believe that this is really kind of part of the special feeling that some hidden gem in Japan.
Well, Satoyama Jujo is fairly small boutique hotel in southern Niigata, and it's been well known among tourists in Japan as accommodation which serves the best food probably in the country, using various kinds of vegetables in a very delicate way. And the first time I visited there, I was so impressed by the variety of taste different kinds of vegetables can give you. Maybe can you explain how you got there? Maybe you started as a vegetarian chef first?
Yeah, actually, my career is not a chef. I travel in the world, and my more important, like I teach yoga also. I was in India for 2 years. I was kind of traveling. So, but it's always I'm focused to local what they eat and how to be a healthy way. And in local, traditional cuisine is always makes sense to me because they a long way to keeping that. So they focus to the local produce and then focus to the how the people living there. So this is culture. So when become head chef in Satoyama Jujo, so I like to focus to more that's culture in countryside because also I believe that I'm living in Niigata. There's such a beautiful snow country, snow food culture. So this is all harmonize everything. So then also I go to mountain every day for foraging. That's such a unique flavor. So that the food is not only tasty, but they need to more like a bitterness, astringent, sour, everything the flavor. So that's the nature provide us such a beautiful, that's I think that you feel that way too. I mean, different taste than the other in Tokyo beautiful restaurant.
Yeah, and also depending on the season, the cuisine you offer varies so much. In the spring, I go to your hotel and I enjoy a lot of sansai variety. And in the late autumn, I can enjoy the most delicious rice as the main dish. So this is the kind of variations she's creating at the hotel. And maybe I should go to Ken. Thank you for waiting. So give us your vision of your most recent development project.
Sure. Once again, thanks very much for the invitation. Maybe I can give some, framework and background so that it's easier for me to explain later on. So I'm a Singaporean, born in Japan, grew up in Tokyo until when I was 6. So I grew up speaking Japanese as my mother tongue, and so I kind of, grew up, using Japanese language when I was a kid. Came back to Japan in, I think, 90s, work in the finance industry. And then back here in 2000 again, with GIC, Government of Singapore Investment Corporation, take charge of running the company in Japan, growing the business, invested in many kind of asset classes, in listed companies as well as real estate, infrastructure, private equity. So on the real estate front, did a lot of investments alongside with this growth of tourism change that happened over the last 2 decades. So if I were to bring back 2002, that was the first year when Japan had, co-hosted World Football, World Cup together with Korea. So that was the first year that inbound visitorship grew more than 5 million people, only 2002. Coming from Singapore, we had 10 million inbound. So we're like, that's quite a joke, Japan's such a great place, only 5 million with the World Cup. So from there on, it continued to grow, as what Umezawa-san said. So 37 million right now, right? So we are aiming for 60 million. So across the last 2 decades, you actually see a lot of inbound grow, right? And that continued to actually, with a few reasons, cheap yen, of course, Asian growth and, visa loosening, and a lot more interesting things to do here in Japan. And therefore, lots of people are coming to visit here right now. So the macro trend has been always on our side, right? So to the extent where they realized that, hey, why don't we use this as a big GDP pillar? Right, so you mentioned about third so-called, contributor towards the GDP here. Very much so like Singapore, right? Tourism is actually, one of the top 3 pillar, in trying to bring in inbound so that, you can grow that so-called economy. So I think you have that backdrop in Japan to actually see tourism, to take it as an anchor business, for this country. So with the last 2 decades of growth, you see Tokyo, a lot of new hotel rooms being added, so therefore you have rates that are, increasing to some ridiculous pricing right now. Of course, Kyoto being one common area where continue to see lots of tourists want to pour into very unique offerings that they have there. And now, people are, extending all the way to like Fukuoka, all the way to Hokkaido, which also, does a great marketing, effort to bring in a lot more inbound visitors. And even domestic visitors wanting to go to Hokkaido for visits. So I think that part of trying to see these last 20 years, the government as a whole, and therefore the business people following up and trying to use this as an important economic so-called transformation is pretty prominent, in what happened, the last 20 years or so. So after working for GIC for 20 years, I decided that one fine day, hey, I want to do something independently. Left GIC about 5.5 years ago, set up a company called Patience Capital Group. So we launched in 2019 December, our first Japan tourism real estate fund, thinking that 2020 we're going to have a Olympic year that, going to see a lot more inbound coming in after the rugby festival or World Rugby event in October 2019. So, with lots of dream and drive. 3 months later, COVID came hitting us. And so we had to deal with a lot of situations in COVID. So 2021, 22 was a very exciting year for us in that sense that, we went independent. We wanted to invest in tourism sector in Japan. It's like, none of these stars had aligned for us to actually kickstart the business. But, good fortune we had. We had quite a few big investors, continue to support us, thinking that, hey, we could take advantage of the situation. So with that, thematically, we actually focus on looking at all kind of Japan tourism potential. So of course we can take advantage of doing things in Tokyo. Of course, the fund also bought something in Tokyo or in Osaka, in some of this bigger city. But we found that there was a huge opportunity to actually tackle many of these secondary tourism destination. And so with part of the experience I had when I was at GIC, GIC was a big investor in a ski resort team in the United States. So things like Whistler, things like, transformation of KSL that did, Deer Valley. Many of these things were done, invested by GIC, which is my old company in the States. So we felt that, hey, we could actually take advantage of something similar here in Japan because the market is actually so at its doldrum that is actually at the bottom. And Japan has some tremendous amount of quality snow and great ski resorts, great destination, but yet nobody bothered to actually fix it, except for probably starting off Niseko as well as now Hakuba. and now, spill over to a few places. So we felt that, hey, there was this opportunity there. And we then look around and, study the whole market. So we identified an area at Nagano and Niigata, the border of Nagano and Niigata. And so the first acquisition we did was at Madarao Kogen. That's actually just 15 minutes away from a bullet train station called Iyama. And then we then also bought a ski resort in Miyoko Kogen in Suginohara, from Seibu. And then we also bought a lot of land around that area. So we bought quite a bit of land in Nojiriko, Lake Nojiri. We were thinking that, hey, we could transform this to become like a Lake Como. But, with that whole so-called big picture in mind, with the COVID, but we had the support, we managed to actually acquire about 500 over hectares of land in that whole area over the last 3 to 4 years. So that's a huge amount of land, right? So a lot of people ask me, so how many Tokyo Dome is that? It's probably about 100, 110, but you still can't quite figure out 100 Tokyo Dome means what kind of surface area. But so with that, 2 ski resorts and lakeside land. So what we will envisage or benchmark is to basically build something that can rival things like the Whistler, Deer Valley, Vail, Courchevel, St. Moritz, or Zermatt, or something that is really properly organized, properly thought through. So a developer leading charge, working closely together with the regional ownership. So the city, the KU, the prefecture, then subsequently even with the ministry to figure out how to make sure that we can transform the whole area. So then subsequently within the next 5-10 years, no longer people will just go to, come to Tokyo and then go to Hakone or go to Kyoto. We hope that they will all keep coming into where, we are developing a whole township is. So there's a big vision of how we decided to do it. 7-8 years, ago when I was still at GIC. So that kind of transformed in now setting up a fund and then subsequently investing in this thing. So the tourism sector is something that we continue to be very bullish about. So from a macro perspective, looking at a whole transformation of ski resort area, and then subsequently during the summer we will address a lot of content in there. And alongside, we have actually acquired a few more land, some in Shimoda, some in Miura Hanto. We're looking at land all over, Japan right now. So all, in excess of 40 hectares. So big size, so we can transform some so-called regional revitalization. It's a term in Japan they commonly use as chiho sosei, but not quite any people actually have done this over the last decade or so. So we felt that we are a team of people that can come and do that so-called regional revitalization and change something in Japan so that we can offer to the world at a subsequent stage. I'm going to stop there. You might have some questions here.
Yeah, it is clear that Japan really needs to distribute inbound tourists to other regions outside of Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka to probably grow further and satisfy the customers better. But at the same time, not many companies or businesses are making significant investment outside of those regions. Why do you think that they behave that way?
I think, if you think about, where we had during the bubble period, so that was in the late 80s, early 90s, where, myself included, we started during the, just the end of the bubble period, got into the whole so-called society. Everyone in their 20s, 30s at that point of time. So they were put to take charge of, because of the bubble collapsing, bursting, everyone was put, the younger folks are just put in charge of trying to figure out how to dispose all the regional so-called assets, right? So these guys who were at that point of time a young officer, now today he's either Jomu, Semu, or like the CEO of the company. So everyone had bad impression right now who's managing big companies right now, bad experiencing in doing things around in the regional area, right? So therefore the regional investment has stopped for the last maybe 30 years. In fact, it used to be led, of course, some real estate companies, but it used to be led by the railway company. And the railway company has visionary leader. So if you see Goto-san from Tokyo, then you see the Tsutsumi family from Seibu Holdings, right? So you have some leadership that basically wanting to transform the Japanese regional, tourism sector. But the last 30 years, nobody has done it. Not Mitsui Fudosan, not Mitsubishi Jujo, not Sumitomo Fudosan. So they all are basically saying, hey, let's just figure out how to do things in Tokyo. Just demolish the older building, build a new building. You just fill up, the tenant. That could be a much easier way to actually, deal with things. So I think that's basically an economic situation where I think nothing has happened over the last 20, 30 years. So we felt that the huge opportunity of, if you actually go and target a lot of regional revitalization, a tremendous amount of ways to actually, make good economic returns.
I suspect probably more than 100 snow resorts are potentially up for sale now, right? And you are selecting probably the best one.
So there's probably about 1,000 plus minus. Some still operating, some are not operating, and so we spend years trying to look through things. I've been looking at these ski resorts for the last 20 years, even when I was at GIC. Before Niseko, kickstarted to where it is today. Went there really just before Niseko was transforming. I wasn't convinced because I felt that it was far, it was very difficult, but I was proven wrong totally, right? So the whole, foreign investor coming in to transform that area, and it's a bit similar to your, I guess, Whistler, in Canada. So you have quite a bit of these so-called like foreign investors coming in. So we take a lot of so-called foreign, examples for this time around in Japan. And so, as I mentioned earlier, sort of the transportation convenience to where we are investing is amazing. So there's a Hokuriku Shinkansen that, basically now it goes all the way to Fukui, right? And you start from Tokyo to Nagano. That's opened up at 1997 for the 98 Winter Olympic. And then from there on, it can extend it to Kanazawa. That's in 2015. And then to Fukui was 2024, right? So the whole Hokuriku Shinkansen, basically, it's your, backbone in trying to bring in a lot of customers towards the whole so-called Nagano, Niigata area. And then that's basically, you don't even have to invest in infrastructure anymore. And also highway have basically built up over the last 10 years, which a lot of Japanese don't know too. Tremendous convenience in highways. So from our ski resorts, when you get off the highway exit, it's only 5 minutes to the foot of our mountain.
That's great.
That's something that a lot of people don't know about it. So it's for us to educate, as I mentioned to you all the time, we're going to target a lot of Japanese domestic customers. We'll educate them, let them know what's going on, and then the inbound will follow through. That's what we think.
So it appears that the Ken has been able to persuade various stakeholders, including investors, to make a big investment to that particular area. Question for George and Keiko. Are you having any challenge in realizing your vision to revitalize the local community? Maybe starting from George. You have done a great job of creating your own hospitality facility, but your vision is much broader than that. And are you having any challenge?
The challenge is to involve all those local people into this project, because we know the experience that the customer want to experience is in the life of the locals, daily life or the industry. Yeah, that's what I thought. But usually those locals are pretty much closed for the stranger. So like a good example is the Ama diver. They are kind of reluctant to take him to the tour because those people who are there might be coming back and steal their abalone. So they tend to think like that way. But if we can think of the good way of providing their cut, the profit going back to them, then their way of looking at the things might be changing. So persuading those people to our side and having a mutual benefit, this would be the most challenging part to me.
So you have involved those Ama divers as well as fishers and maybe people in the market as
In the people in the market, what do you mean by people in the market?
The vegetable market or fish market?
It's more related to know-how, where the catches are. And also, like a pearl farmer, they don't want to disclose their own technique over grafting and to get the good pearls. But little by little, without the story, they cannot sell. They do start understanding. It used to be like we are concentrating on to produce the quantity. As long as it's beautiful, it was so easily sold. But the world is kind of a changing. People tend to want more stories behind making pearls. And how much do we care about the nature and the environment? So those parts we have to disclose. Then more we can attract the guests.
I see.
And the locals start understanding that.
You didn't need to raise capital to develop your accommodation, or did you?
Raise capital, yes. I had the whole cove. My company had the whole cove, so I didn't need to buy the
Buy land.
real estate or whatever. And also, mainly, we did the renovation of the old farming facility.
A pearl farming facility.
Yes, that's right. And there was a government fund over COVID time. I utilized those things fully. So, of course, I paid. But
You paid yourself.
yes,
Yeah.
the amount was not that much.
Oh, I see. How about involving the local municipal governments, local government people, or you didn't need to?
Well, there are some kind of a GMO in Iseshima area too.
DMO?
DMO, yes.
Yeah, Destination
Yes.
Management Organization.
Hi. So they are kind of a half public and half private, right? So those people are very much interested in ours because the concept of ours, like sharing the benefit with the locals or to present what is here, what kind of industry is going on. I want to put light on it, and this is exactly what they want. So they would like to bring us to many occasions for promoting. So they are kind of pushing us. This is so grateful to me.
Yeah, I think the first time I knew about your hotel was through DMO people, actually. Yeah. So, Keiko-san, have you had any challenges in involving the local people, farmers and others?
Involving people, the local, takes me time because I'm not from that Niigata area. I'm from Satoyama. So it takes me, now it's working in 12 years. It takes me like 5 or 6 years. But every day I try to go to these farmers, Oji-chan. First of all, he saw, oh, you're such a small girl to what you're talking about. And they not take me to the mountain. It's not you. You're such a small girl. You cannot go to the mountain. But it takes time. But now it's, everyone kind of feel that part of me community. But for me now, more challenging thing is like Kakuda-san said, it's aging countryside and also shrinking because younger generation go to the city. They're not interested in at all the local culture. So that's very much because that's cannot hold much the restaurant and market. Also, this tradition to keep it. So yeah, we need to keep the younger generation in countryside.
Your company, Jujo, which owns the facility, Satoyama Jujo, has developed and operated several other accommodation facilities in other parts of Japan. Are you supporting the chefs in those facilities as well?
Sometimes, but mainly I just focus to now in Niigata, Satoyama Jujo. Yeah.
So you're not involved in...
It's part of, but it's also that's I try to make a more like community in this the local area.
I see.
Just kind of like I learned from this oji-chan, oba-chan, elder people to how to grow in a vegetable, how to go to the mountain, daily life, everything. But same time, I'm also share this older story to the young generation. That also involved other hotel staff as well. So that's using for like a social media or as a food through the food. So that's kind of motivate to this younger generation come to the attract to this countryside how they can do it. there.
Are you feeling the change of their mindset in terms of thinking about going to rural areas and do something for the community?
Definitely, especially for this, I'm talking about restaurant side and this cuisine. Nowadays, so many destination restaurant we call to in Japan. That's so much because younger generation kind of bit the sick of this work in Tokyo, especially restaurant area such a tough. So many Michelin starred in Tokyo. But if you go to this countryside, there's so many rich source of this ingredients. And the younger generation now realize that's more attractive. I think it's pretty changed past 5-6 years.
And maybe COVID also affected
Definitely,
the mind shift.
yes, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, we have seen more and more top chefs are going to open maybe second or third restaurant in the countryside.
Yeah, definitely. And then also this the food is such a big motivation to traveling. And then because, for example, if you go somewhere and they always ask you, what do you eat in Japan? So, and also I like to, because most of the time my friends say, ramen, sushi, yakiniku. But there's so many variety of this countryside that are more like discover or more. So that's why I'm working to this 12 years. It takes time to discover traditional food, to create the fine dining way. It's not just to give them to traditional food, but more fine, shiny for the fine dining way. That's quite challenging for me too.
Thank you. Well, it makes a lot of sense. So before opening the discussion with the audience, I'd like to ask each one of you about your recommendations for Japan to be the most admired tourism destination. What do you recommend?
You mean currently or going forward? Or?
Going forward.
Oh, going forward. So you know, it's sort of like a bit of a bias right now that we're going to be developing the whole Nagano Niigata area, you know, as a central so-called peak, you know, where we're going to be certainly using, you know, ski resort as the beginning part, but it's going to be a, you know, elevated mountain resorts that we are looking at. So there'll be a lot of contents that are going to be put in place. So food for one, definitely experiential tourism, like what Kakuda-san had mentioned. We have lots of rice paddy field, right? You know, literally next to our so-called development resorts. So, you know, the experience very much like Chiang Mai or in Bali, where you can actually, you know, plant rice, you come back and harvest, you know, you can, you know, we'll send you back that so-called rice that you actually, you know, literally planted. So the experiential so-called tourism, something, you know, of course is within our thoughts too. So summertime, like, you know, we'll do some trail running. You know, Miyoko is also known for ekiden. So if you know, if everyone who actually lives in Japan knows, you know, in the beginning of the year, we all watch ekiden, you know, and on the second and third day. So 90% of the ekiden runners, they all train in Miyoko during summer, right? So on the road, you have like, you know, ranna chui. So you're just warning people when you drive around to make sure that the runners, you know, you have to be aware. So that's how, you know, known it is for, you know, like all kind of so-called like sports that we can actually think about expanding it properly. And it's also the lake, right? So we're going to have like lakeside activities, and without doubt, you know, winter where powder snow, 13 meters of snow is actually the most amount of snow accumulated in 1 year for the last 10 years. In the whole of Japan, more so than Niseko, by the way. So that's the kind of amount of snow that we are talking about. So, you know, we certainly think that, you know, Miyoko Madarao, over the next few weeks, you'll actually start, you know, seeing a lot of marketing exposure that we'll be going out to announce new hotels, you know, new so-called like things that we are doing. So hopefully, you know, we will just continue to basically bring that, you know, customer base to this new destination for Japan. Yeah.
Well, another impressive news I saw recently about your effort is hiring Yoshiyama-san, Mr. Yoshiyama, Japan's most successful event producer, as your chief entertainment officer?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so Yuki, his first name, so Yoshiyama Yuki. So Yuki is basically a producer, a music producer. Well, we are a fund management company, as you can think about, as conservative as we are, and coming from GIC training, everything is all very conservative. So we come up with a lot of content people. So Yuki, he basically produced things like the GMO Sonic, all kind of big events like, EDCs. He was basically a DJ in Tomorrowland recently. So we were all at Tomorrowland. And so we're figuring out how to bring in all these big music festivals, those that we organize by ourselves. We also have basically quite a number of creative people that are working closely with us. On the sports side, we have quite a few sports people that also work together with us. Either famous snowboarder like Travis Rice. So he works together with us in figuring out what to do things over in the mountain. We also do summer stuff, right? So we have a lot of so-called advisors such as tennis. So Date Kimiko also works closely with us in like figuring out what kind of content in there. So what we're trying to do is to figure out bringing a lot of the right personality around in the world, coming to where we are doing and transform the whole area to make sure that it's going to be something impactful.
Very impressive. Thank you. So George, please give your recommendations.
Yes. I think that what makes the destination special is the uniqueness, things that can only be found in that region. Japan has many small communities with unique culture and a way of living. And the local residents are the touch point of the experience, the unique experience. I believe there are many locals who have interesting ideas to offer to. But they don't have enough resources to realize their ideas. It would be interesting if large companies with financial resources can work together with the locals and invest in their ideas. This would be what I can think of.
Again, can you describe the uniqueness you are providing in your place?
So most of the hotels are run by the hotel experts. But this time I was starting as a fishery or fishing industry or pearling industry, and uniqueness is maybe there. So I jumped in this industry because I do have my different eyes from the hotel people. So this would be the uniqueness, and there might be people like that all over Japan. So those people stand up and try their attempt.
Yeah, there are quite a lot of small accommodations run by farmers, but not many probably run by fishers or pearl producers. And probably a pearl producer running a small hotel. Maybe you may be only one example in Japan.
So far, I think I'm the only one.
Yeah.
Yes, but there are many abundant pearl farms in Shima area.
Right.
And they're all special. You can only access by boat. So high privacy over there. So if like-minded people were kind of inspired by what I'm doing, then those people might be starting their own bed and breakfast or just a place to stay in. And then more numbers of people, then the area will become more popular with those kind of accommodation.
And
this is
another great thing about your effort is that you stopped producing pearls in the Ago one.
Yes, in 97 years I stopped.
Yeah, and you were growing pearls in overseas markets, but you decided to come back and you restarted the activity.
Yes, I did. So two reasons. The reason why is we produce those small pearls like 3 millis and 4 millis. This is quite special for the Agobe area of Mie. So producing those does have a benefit. That's the first thing. And the second thing is to provide pearl farming as an activity. It has to be the real things.
Right.
I cannot just bring in one or two technicians and just showing. So this doesn't make it real.
I see.
So I started by myself with the real farming.
That's great. Thank you. So Keiko, please give yours recommendations for Japan or people in the sector.
Also, again, I'm not business person, so I'm just a chef. So for my opinion, I don't know, do I really need to upgrade everything in Japan? For me, if you go to overseas, when I touch something that might hurt, it's like, also in Japan, there's already have a beauty for this, our tradition, also our culture and nature. This is, I think, is more, when you go to this somewhere in Japan to touch something, I think this is, for me, it's a really need to share for the visitors, because this authenticity in Japan, it's still exists, and then that is such a beauty of this in countryside in Japan.
So authenticity from the culture perspective, or maybe taking advantage of the natural beauty in the region. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's open up the discussion for the panel. Yes, please. So the two gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Your name?
Yeah, I'm Romain Caillot. I'm a public affairs consultant here in Tokyo. And I'd like to ask a question around rural mobility. Because, for example, in Niseko, there are many tourists looking to go out and to go to restaurants, but actually there is not even enough supply of local transportation. So how maybe, please, if you want to answer all, do it, but maybe specifically to Ken in relationship to your project, how are you addressing this challenge?
Another question, please.
Okay. Hi, my name is Mike. I actually flew from Singapore this morning to Tokyo. Maybe we're on the same flight. I live here, though. And I've actually been advising a wave pool project in Japan for the past 7 years. We're going to build one in Biwako.
Okay.
It's a company called Wave Garden in Japan. As a quick anecdote, I only have a few seconds left, which is I went to Goto-retto in Nagasaki with my wife, and we found this little farm and cows, and the guy was like, hey, I'll give you a piece of my tambo for free, right? Because he was just so happy that we were there. And so it got me thinking, is there a new non-obvious maybe model where you combine tourism and try to get the tourists to actually angel invest, or maybe not just an obvious like buying a residence or something, but yeah, a smaller 100万yen investment or 500万yen investment from the tourists or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Very interesting question. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Chol Min. I was working at private equity fund, which has a property of hotel. Then I have a question to all of you, and that is, what kind of problem or issues you have in your current business? That problem must be like big impact on your current business. At the same time, how do you handle those challenges, problems, etc.? Thank you.
So
yes. Okay. So let me answer the first question first. So mobility. So in our team, we actually have a lady. Her name is called Ito Asuka. She actually now works at FIA, which stands for Federation International Automobiles. So that's based in Paris. So FIA take charge of basically everything in the world, addressing what kind of so-called transportation issues around the world. In fact, F1 is also under the charge of FIA. So she's the only Japanese there. So anyway, she sits as our advisorship. She also advises, Naikakuhu, so, the government of Japan. So we've been trying to tackle this whole so-called situation of what you just mentioned, right? So regional transportation, what's going to be a problem? So the first thing that we did was we actually signed a joint venture agreement with a local train. And that local train is none other than a train called Shinano Dentetsu. Shinano Railway basically starts the first station from Karuizawa. So if you've been to Karuizawa, if you know Karuizawa well. So that train basically goes all the way past Nagano Station to Myoko Kogen as the last station, which is basically where our ski resort is, 5 minutes away from our ski resort. So we signed a joint venture, we make an announcement. So we're going to do a lot of interesting transformation of the railway. So that extra so-called last 2 miles or last 3 miles before the last 1 mile we talked about, aside from bringing in customers using Shinkansen or you drive there, so we also can bring in a lot of customers from Karuizawa. Karuizawa has got some great customer base over there, to actually ask them to take our train, the joint venture train, transform our kind of content in there to actually build something, that could actually address that one part of that so-called transportation. And once you go down to Myokokoge and Eki, then it becomes a lot easier. We can do Junkan buses, we can do all kind of things in there. But more importantly, you mentioned something about, the last 1 mile of, transportation. I think in Niseko, the biggest problem is that, so you now have got Go Taxi, right? So that's basically trying to address bringing about 20 drivers during the region, cars, to see whether they can, cope with it. But 20 taxis is not enough to cope with everything. So we've been working very closely with the local taxi as well as the car company, a bus company. So both in Nagano and Niigata, because we are investing at the border of these two so-called prefecture. So on the Nagano side, so, El Pico, and on the Niigata side, you have Niigata Kotsu. So you basically are, grouping all of these people with our, advisors on the transportation, addressing what's going on in the world and figuring out what else we can do. We might do a few things right now because the next 3 years when we actually have that whole last completion of the development of the whole, ski resorts or accommodations there, we would like to basically start implementing in a small way, right? So including things like driverless. So basically like no driver, so-called automatic driving. So there's one thing that we would want to consider because it's a smaller town, so it's a lot easier to plan for that. Of course, you also think about addressing the local taxi as well as the bus transportation to come up with a proper route, and then at the same time, considering introducing Uber, right? Which now currently Uber has been aggressively expanding itself, and then figuring out how to bring in drivers in there to live there, so that they can basically address that last 1 mile situation. So we are thinking through many layers of so-called like last 2 miles, and as well as the last 1 mile situation in the market there. Should I take the other questions?
Maybe I want to ask two of you to pick up either the second question or third question, if you can.
I go for the second question, the angel investment. For now, we are not doing that, but like I explained, the grafting of the pearl might be something like that. It's not an investment, but they would graft and producing a pearl. So 1 year later, the customer would like to come back for another staying. So this would help us very much. And pearls belongs to them. It's something like an interest to them. And so we only have such a relation, but angel investment I haven't, or we haven't thought about it yet. Maybe I should. Thank you.
Keiko, your answer?
The third question.
Yeah, either one you like.
Okay. The third question is like I also answered it. It's also the staff. So to get the quality staff to working with the restaurant and hotel is really challenging for us. So for the facing this problem, we again, it's just create a generation to communication each other. Like we learn from the elder people, and also at the same time, I tell all this story to the younger generation. So then encourage them how it's great to culture in this countryside. There's other new life in the countryside. There's other, let's give them to that step to this how, because someone need to live in there. We cannot just bring to this some city area to some stuff. So this is a very challenging stuff. And also, we create the community, like you said, like a mobility, like a transformation. Like again, if you go to the countryside, they want to go to some restaurant that you said. But instead of, because it's so hard, takes time to like create nice like transportation. It's not the job, the government, like other prefecture's job. But instead, we create a community for the chef. So we does so many like chef's event. So encourage the young chef in this prefecture, and then also we invite the chef from overseas, and then kind of like PR them to how they get the nice countryside restaurant to then collaboration together. So more PR for the overseas. And that also make the young chef in the countryside, wow, we have such a great opportunity there. So those kind of things to help, not because we cannot waiting for this government to making for the bus system, everything. We are living there. So we have to kind of solution to make a solution by ourselves to try to do, but it takes time. Takes us now, it's over 12 years now. So yeah, it takes time.
Thank you. And regarding the second question, your excellent question, I have another example from Ureshino, Saga Prefecture. They provide very high class 2-hour experience of serving specially blended tea in 3 bunches on a specially designed stage on tea field, open air. And you can also buy a piece of tea field, and you can receive, every year you can receive the output from the tea field you own. So it's another way to do a kind of investing in the local ecosystem. Other questions? Please.
This is for Ken. So I currently work at a music company in Korea. Before this, I worked at Live Nation, where I actually managed EDC and led the expansion in Asia. Could you elaborate a little bit more about the partnership between entertainment companies, and you said you went to Tomorrowland and bring all the entertainers, and I guess real estate company, or specifically your fund, and would love to just hear about the specific partnerships that you're leading.
So we are a fund management company. We today we only talk about the Japan Tourism Fund. We only look at tourism related investments in the ski mountain. We also have various other funds. We invest in residential sectors in Tokyo and Greater Tokyo. We have about $500 million of investments around. We also, by the way, early this year we bought a building in Ginza. So that's none other than Tokyo Plaza Ginza, where Ray's currently has got a shop over there right now. We also have a private equity fund that we look to invest in all kind of private equity lifestyle related contents. In Singapore, we actually have a lifestyle VC fund that looks at investing like content, so things like movies, music, all kind of so-called like interesting fun ideas. So on that joint venture, well, or rather on the path of us trying to look at music and all kind of entertainment related content. Mountain is basically where we have as a destination. So everyone is looking for all kind of destination event where the mountain is something that a lot of people are interested. I kind of briefly mentioned Tomorrowland partly because they actually have a winter Tomorrowland version in Alpe d'Huez, that's in France, right? So you go, you go for skiing, and then you go to different stages to enjoy all kind of music festival. So so that's something that because we own the mountain, is something that we can consider doing. We also have a a good joint venture relationship with Ultra. So as you know, Ultra, they have it in Korea, they have it in Tokyo, various other cities, started from Miami. So we'll look at, doing all kind of these so-called EDC or EDM type of festival that potentially we will bring in to the mountain. But that's not going to just stop us, over just, like EDM related festival. We will work with, music producers for bringing in, say, singers, like all kind of artists and performers. But we also do things like art installation, quite a bit of art stuff, like very much so in Japan, many places like Naoshima, for example, have all kind of art contents in there. It's something that we are also working on. Also with like business content. So things like Aspen Idea Festival, very similar to something like a Davos, but in an American sense. So we'll think about doing something of that content around in the mountain too. So it's just bringing all kind of interesting content around to the mountain. And so I'm sure with a Live Nation experience. So that's something that somebody that we'll be talking to in figuring out what to do there.
Thank you, Ken. So with the time constraint, maybe I should give a wrap-up summary, at least my takeaways from this session. Number one, there exist huge opportunities to develop tourism destination outside of big cities like Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto. It is obvious. But at the same time, Japanese existing large corporations are reluctant to make investment like that because of the trauma Ken described earlier. So there are opportunities for new entrants, and new entrants in particular with the capacity to raise funds, the ability to manage business well, and maybe possesses a sense of beauty. That's the kind of businesses we really need in the countryside of Japan from the tourism perspective. What matters is uniqueness, as George highlighted, as well as authenticity and local culture, as Keiko emphasized. And also Japan needs to attract more investment to those projects outside of large cities to accommodate demanding customers, both from big cities as well as overseas, including probably food, entertainment to do beyond skiing and snowboarding, or local transportation we discussed. So the combination of maintaining those authentic experience with upgraded infrastructure with investment will be the key to success of the tourism in those rural areas. Thank you very much again for joining the session, and please give a big applause to the excellent panelists. Thank you.